children, I welcome you to another lesson in science, Basic to Science. I'm your facilitator, Miss Wama, and this is going to be our third lesson on science. Today, we are still on diversity of matter. Under that, we are going to talk about living things in our environment and non-living things. So we talk about things in our environment as living things and non-living things. What are we going to learn today? By the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify things, all the things that you have in your environment, around you, in your locality. You should be able to identify them with their names. Secondly, you should be able to group these things that you have identified as living and non-living things. And finally, talk about the characteristics of these living and non-living things. Let us look at our keywords for today. Our first keyword for today is living. Let's all spell living. L-I-V-I-N-G. Living. It simply means having life. To have life. Our second keyword is non-living. That is the opposite of living. So if living means to have life, non-living means you do not have life, not having life, not alive. Okay. Characteristic. Let's spell it. C-H-A-R-A-C-T-E-R-I-S-T-I-C. It's quite long. Let's take it again. Characteristic. C-H-A-R-A-C-T-E-R-I-S-T-I-C. Characteristic. In this case, it means the quality or the property that something holds. Okay. In class 1, we've been talking about things in your environment. What are some of the things you talked about as the things that you have in your environment? On your screen are some selected or collected items on our environment. Look at them carefully. The first one is what? Lizard. Mobile phone. Chair. Cock or hen. Bicycle. Dog. Ant. Ball. Sheep. Car. Pawpaw tree. Radio. Stones. Pencil. Books. And finally, pen. These are examples of things you can find in your environment. Very good. Now let's try and group them into living and non-living things. Okay. We looked at the meaning of living, saying things that have life. So if you look at these things that we have collected so far, which of them have life and which of them do not have life? So the ones that you think have life will be put under living, and the ones that do not have life will be under non-living. We are going to do it together. Okay. Which of these things will take the first space or the first column for living? Lizard. Lizard is an animal. Animals have life. So you put lizard under living. Okay. Mobile phone will be under non-living. Have you ever seen a mobile phone crying before? Or eating? Breathing? All these are activities that living things perform. So a mobile phone cannot do any of these. So we group it under non-living things. Okay, let's do this quickly. Hen, under living. Good. Chair, non-living. Dog is definitely going to be under living. Bicycle, non-living. Ant, living. Ball, non-living. Pawpaw tree, living because it's a tree. Car, non-living. Hope you can do the rest. Very good. All right, let's continue. What are the characteristics of a living thing? What does it have? What can you see that will tell you that this thing can be called a living thing? Okay. Living things take in air, water, and food to stay alive. So, if you are living and you do not take all these things, if you are a thing and you don't do all these things, that means you are not a living thing. Animals drink water, they eat, they need air to stay alive. So that is one characteristic of a living thing. The next one, living things are things which have life in them. That means they can breathe, they can move. Showing all those actions means they have life. They take in oxygen, bring out carbon dioxide. Okay. Some living things move by themselves. I said some because you don't see plants moving. But in science, if you go into details, plants move in certain ways before they reproduce. We are not talking about that yet. When you go to your upper classes, you talk about how plants move. But for now, plants stay at one place, but they move in certain ways. Most living things move on their own, either to find food, water, or playmates. Good. We also grow. Living things grow. So anything that do not grow is not a living thing. Finally, living things can produce young ones of their kind. So if you're a plant, like the pawpaw tree, you should be able to produce a young plant as pawpaw tree. Human beings give birth. Giving birth to their young ones of their kind is a way of what? Showing that you are a living thing. Now let's look at some of the characteristics of non-living things, which is the right opposite of living thing. Non-living things, what do they do? Non-living things do not need air, water, and food to what? To live. They are not living. They don't have life. so they don't need these things. See? Good. Stone is an example of a non-living thing because it's just there. It doesn't need water or air. Okay. Number 2. Non-living things are things which do not have life in them. They also don't have life. They don't breathe in air. They don't even breathe out air. They also cannot move. Most of them cannot move on their own. Somebody will ask, but cars move. Yes, they move on their own. No. Human beings enable the car to move. So the car itself moving is not true. So car is a non-living thing because it does not move on its own. It doesn't have life. Okay. The next one. Can you see? Have you ever seen a non-living thing growing before? A chair, for example. 1 year time, you see the chair growing tall. Not at all. They don't grow. Non-living things cannot grow. Finally, non-living things do not produce young ones like living things. How do we get them? Human beings produce them. Do you get it? Yes, if you want to have plenty chairs, you need to produce it. Human beings produce them. So that doesn't mean they produce young ones of their kind. They don't. They don't have life. So they can't produce young ones of their kind. Very good. Hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. What have we talked so far? Let's do a quick recap on what we have discussed. We've talked about the things we can find in our environment. We also grouped these things according to their non and what? Non-living things. We also looked at some characteristics of living and non-living things. Alright, get your jotters. Try and list the things you have around you in your locality. Group them into living and non-living things. Try and look out for certain characteristics we've talked about on your things you've collected and list them in your jotter. We'll meet on our Zoom meeting. We'll talk more on living and non-living things. Children, this is the end of our lesson. Till I come your way another time, stay safe and be good. Bye-bye.